people are just too smart for us, and they see how to show their love. We see and we know how to show love and show feelings towards people. But who's looking on the inside? So that's the problem that we're approaching on tonight, all right? That's what we're going to attack, and that's where we find ourselves. I want to point your attention to the greatest love story in history. It's about God. And it's about the God, not a God, the God that sought the love of humanity, that ran after humanity when humanity was running away from him. I want to point you to that love story. And everybody knows it like this. John 3:16 says what? So God had this thing down pat, right? He said that, you know what? Since I love inward, then I'm going to give outward. He said, since I love is a feeling of the heart. It's an emotion. I love. This is how I feel on the inside. That what? My love shows action, so I gave my son. So God had it right. He had it down. But I want to point you to a different passage. It's kind of just showing a little bit of background. Even before he even gave his son, God showed many signs, and he showed many just symbolic ways of his love and his just wanting and his desire for us to be in communication with him. Turn to Romans chapter 1, starting at verse 18. Starting at verse 18, I want to read it to you like this. If you need to, you can read it up here, because I want to read it from the New Living, what is it, translation, New Living Translation. I want to read it through that, because it's a great thing. It can break it down for you. All right, verse 18. But God shows his anger from heaven against all sinful, evil men who push away the truth from them. For the truth about God is known to them instinctively. God has put this knowledge in their hearts. Since earliest times, men have seen the earth and sky and all God made, and have known of his existence and great eternal power. So they will have no excuse when they stand before God at judgment day. I want to stop right there. I'm just going to be reading and stopping and just interjecting and stuff like that as we go. So I want to just read right there. What we see right here is God wanted to make believing that he exists as easy as possible. So he created things so that even though you could not see him, his qualities were evident through his creation. Understand that. He wanted you to believe in him so much that he made his invisible qualities visible through what he does, through his work, through the creation of man, through the creation of heaven and earth, through the creation, everything you see. If nothing else was known by humanity, one will be able to assume that, look, I'm looking around and I see cars, I see trees, I see mountains, I see people. If I didn't create it, then someone greater than me did. Someone who had way more power than I did, because even if I had 1,000,000 years, I couldn't do this. So if nothing else, God showed himself, and he wanted to prove himself to humanity by what he had created. So it's kind of like this. Imagine the first humans walking around. Imagine Adam and Eve. They just walking in the garden, all of a sudden, is that an elephant? It's just like, what in the world? That's an elephant. He just, no leash on him. Ain't nothing on it. You know what I'm saying? He just squirted me with some water. Like, imagine that. It's like, wow, it's like Lion King out there doing, who let him out? It's like literally, it's the zoo with no cages. But what I understand about the world in its beginning, in its original form, it was like perfect. So you didn't have animals beefing with one another. Animals ain't beef. But today we beef with one another. Dang, that's a whole nother mess. Alright, I'm gonna keep on going. So look, God's intention was to make it possible impossible not to doubt him and deny him. We have no excuse. If we could recognize the things he created, then we can recognize him, right? All right, let's go down to verse 21. We're going to read verses 21 right now through 25. Yes, they knew about him all right, but they wouldn't admit it or worship him, or even thank him for all his daily care. And after a while, they began to think of silly ideas of what God was like and what he wanted them to do. The result was their foolish minds became dark and confused. Claiming themselves to be wise without God, they became utter fools instead. And then, instead of worshiping the glorious, ever-living God, they took wood and stone and made idols for themselves, carving them to look like mere birds and animals and snakes and puny men. So God let them go ahead into every sort of sex sin and do whatever they wanted to do. Yes, vile and sinful things with each other's bodies. Instead of believing what they knew was truth about God, they deliberately chose to believe lies. So they prayed to the things God made, but wouldn't obey the blessed God who made these things. Isn't it something? It's almost like the people knew about God and they knew who God was, but it's almost like his attempt to prove himself backfired and humanity chose the things that he created rather than the creator. What I want to point your attention to is, what is it that you begin to worship that God created as opposed to worshiping God? Yeah, God, I know God gave it to you, but, he can't even get to you now.